Record.
All right.
Recording. All right, we're hot. Nice.
We're hot. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. God, this makes me look so pale. All right. Hi, I'm Brennan Sim, Senior Vice President of EB5 United. We're here today to give a little talk on how to evaluate U.S. real estate projects. So we're going to look into EB5 projects as well as regular private equity offerings. I'm joined today by Alex Ahlstrom, our Director of Investor Relations in Asia. Alex, if you'd like to introduce yourself quickly.
Hi, my name is Alex Ahlstrom. I'm the Director of Investor Relations in Asia for EB5 United. I'm working with EB5 since about 2015, and I've helped investors from around the world reach their dreams of moving to the United States.
Great. So Alex has actually been kind of trapped over in Ho Chi Minh City for the last year due to the pandemic. So he's available to meet in person in Vietnam right now. And he's been a great help for a lot of the Vietnamese investors who have been coming in and interested in the EB5 program over the last year. So, well, let's get started on evaluation of U.S. real estate projects. And what we're going to do is transition first into evaluating an EB5 project. And so we'll kick on over to this slideshow here and get going on this. So the first thing that I really want to talk about today is, all right, we can edit this out, right?
Anytime.
So the first thing that I want to talk about today is evaluating an EB5 project because it has two major components to it, one of which a regular private equity offering does not have. So you have two components in an EB5 project. One is your immigration component. So the immigration is the primary goal for each EB5 investor. Most EB5 investors are looking for two things. One, they want a sound investment that's going to return their capital. And the other, they want to make sure that they get a green card to move to the United States. So there is some extra evaluation that has to go into an EB5 project because of the requirements to obtain a green card. So we need to look at the immigration risks involved in a deal. And in immigration, the two key components to obtaining a green card are investing in a qualified EB5 project. So there is something called exemplar approval that projects can apply for. We like to obtain exemplar approval as early as we can in our offerings. And the current deals that we have exemplar approval, but that shows that the USCIS has reviewed the project and approved the documents. And you can look at the track record of an EB5 regional center and look at their past projects and see that they understand what they're doing. This is a matter of putting the right team together and the right attorneys and the right business plan writer and economists to file a petition that's going to meet the requirements of the USCIS so that you can immigrate to the United States. And the other big part of immigration is creating 10 jobs. So there's a huge portion of the EB5 evaluation where you need to look at, is this project going to create 10 jobs with my investment? There's two keys to being sure of that. One is having a job buffer, a job cushion. So you're going to have more jobs created than the 10 jobs needed per investor. And then on the flip side, it's have those jobs already been created. In EB5, we use an economic modeling. We don't just count direct jobs at the site. We have direct, indirect, and induced jobs that count towards job creation. So if a project is already under construction, that means jobs are already being created. And even if the jobs were created before you invest in the project, they still can count towards your 10 jobs for a green card. So the major things in evaluating the immigration risk of an EB5 project are, is the project approvable by the USCIS? And are my 10 jobs going to be created? The last portion of obtaining a green card is making sure that your funds are sourced properly so that the government accepts your investment. And this portion is done by your immigration attorney, as well as through your agent, like Immica in Vietnam. And so what they will do is they will require you to give a lot of documentation to show where all the funds came from for your investment. This is why you really don't want you don't want to find the cheapest attorney to do your case. You want to find an attorney that you feel comfortable is competent enough to get your case approved. Because when you're making an EB-5 investment, the green card is the number one goal. So you want to have a solid attorney, you want to have a project that's approvable, and you want to have a project that's creating the jobs already. So that's the big immigration side of EB-5. On the investment side, EB-5 has to have a unique structure. So in EB-5, you have to have the money deployed for a required time period. And that is, the money must be at risk in a project. That does not mean it has to be risky. It just needs to be in a project with the ability for a gain or loss of capital. So the money has to go into a project and remain in there until you've finished your 2-year conditional green card. So this changes the investment timeline for EB-5 projects from a lot of private equity deals, and it restricts us to setting the projects up in one particular way. Now, usually you're going to see an EB-5 loan term from about 5 to 7 years. The 5 years is to allow the investor time to obtain the green card and complete the 2-year conditional green card. The other portion, the extensions, are for the developer to make sure that they can refinance or sell or get out of the project in a solid manner. Like this year, in 2020, this past year, with COVID, it would have been a bad time for a lot of projects to refinance because they were having issues with operations. Let's say it was a hotel. So you would want to have those extensions so the developer can recover and make sure that they can pay everybody back. So this is impacting the capital structure of EB-5 investments. You're going to want to look at what is the business model of the EB-5 project, what is going to happen. And I do want to touch on right now, people think about the pandemic and they think hotels are closed. Well, in the United States, that's not necessarily true. Most of them are now open, and most of the United States is reopened to at least a half capacity. But like here in Miami, hotels are open to 100% capacity, and most of them are actually full right now. But you need to look at how your investment is being put into the project rather than just the business model of the project. So if you have a hotel that is under construction right now in 2021 and is going to open at the end of 2021, well, in the United States, we expect to have herd immunity by this fall and don't expect to have issues with the pandemic. Also, is the project, what is the area it's in and what is the type of activities going on? We have one project that is a ski resort in Montana where social distancing, everything is social distancing activities. It's all outdoors. Even if there was COVID issues, you're not going to see an impact. Another project is you have other projects in different areas that maybe they will have a little bit more of an impact, but also then you need to take a step back and say, how is my money being put into this project? So if you look at the typical EB-5 structure, which we'll pull up here on the slideshow, when you're making an investment into an EB-5 project, you are buying a share of an EB-5 fund that the issuer has created. So my company, we issue EB-5 United, we issue EB-5 offerings. You can invest in one of our EB-5 offerings. So you invest and buy an equity share of the fund Your equity share is worth $900,000. What we then do is we will loan that money to a development project. And the way that we loan the money will heavily impact your risk in the project. So for an example, with our current deal, the way that we have protected our investors is really twofold. But to start, you can see in this chart here, we have obtained 45% of the money for this project. Dude, I got too complicated on this. I need to redo this.
If it was me, I'd probably just chop it up into topics and go a little bit deeper into each topic.
Yeah.
And then maybe also do it sequentially. So you start off with TEA, and then, because that's the first thing you look at as an investor is the price. And then how do you define that? And then after that, job creation, how that's counted. And then maybe why would I want to invest in something that's close to completion as opposed to something that's already in the beginning stage?
Yeah,
I think it's.
No, I just want to get through I just got too deep into some things that I just want to get through before I get to. So let me here. 1 second. I'm gonna restart this whole thing.
Okay.
We got one shot at this stuff. That really puts a freaking wrench in the chain. All right, here we go. All right, so do you want to take charge of the first question and ask me that after we give the intros?
The intros are still good. I mean, we don't have to redo those. We can just start with questions.
All right, why don't you go ahead and just start and just say, all right, Brennan, so let's get into this, and ask the first question on how to evaluate a $900,000 investment EB5 project. Okay.
All right. Okay, Brennan, so let's get into this. So how do you evaluate a $900,000 investment project and avoid making an unsafe investment decision?
All right, so let's dive into the world of EB5. EB5 differs from all of their types of regular private equity offerings or different types of real estate investments because there is an alternative motive for every investor. Every investor has two motives. One, obviously, is to make a sound investment that's going to return their capital. And the other is to obtain a green card, which is obviously the most important part of the EB5 process. So when evaluating risks in EB5, you have to look at two different risk categories. Not only do you have to look at the investment risk category, but you need to look at the immigration risk category. So your green card is dependent on three things. One, it is having an approvable EB5 project. Two, it is creating 10 jobs for every investor in the project. And three, it is sourcing your funds with your immigration agency and your attorney to show where the money came from so that the US government accepts your funds and gives you the green card. So those three things are vital to every project. So how do we evaluate the risks here? One, in the projects, you can look at the track record of the group that you're working with. You can try to make sure that you understand that they have competence and understand how to get these EB5 projects approved. And you can also see if the project has exemplar or I-526 approvals already, because if it does, it's already been approved by the government. In regards to jobs, you want to look at construction. If construction is further along, more jobs have been created. With EB5 regional centers, jobs are created as you spend money. They don't go backwards. You don't lose jobs. So you can have your jobs created for you before you even invest. And lastly, you want to work with a competent agency and immigration attorney. This is vital to getting your case approved because the government is going to put a lot of scrutiny on where your money came from. And so you want to make sure that you have trust in your attorney and you're working with someone who has a lot of experience in filing EB-5 cases. So on the immigration side, we can really look at projects and evaluate the risks of the immigration. In our current project, we have exemplar approval, I-526 approval, and we have all 10 jobs created for all of the investors in the project already. So you can come in having mitigated those risks. On the flip side, we need to look into the investment. So here's a few things that you want to look through in an EB-5 investment to evaluate the investment risk. And then we're going to kind of recap and go through each one of them a little more detailed. So when you want to see what is the capital structure, who are all the people putting money into the project, and what is the priority of your money? How, if there's an issue with the project, how are you secured? Okay. 2, obviously, is the project under construction. For EB-5, this is twofold. One, it helps with your immigration risk, but this is probably the most relied upon piece of evaluating a project. Everyone, when you have a project that is already well under construction and that's capitalized, so it has the money to complete, it takes the risk down tremendously. There is always risk in projects of never even getting off the ground, never even starting the project, never even going up, and never getting completed when construction hasn't started. So the further along in construction, the more you can evaluate the risk of whether this project's going to get completed. And in EB-5, completion of the project is vital because you have to spend the money to create the jobs. So you really want to look at construction, and is construction going to be completed? You need to look at the business model as well and evaluate the business model. For EB-5, you don't want to assume that a certain business model is or isn't going to work just right off the bat. You don't want to look right now at a pandemic and say, oh, well, people aren't at hotel, people aren't traveling as much, so hotels are bad. That's not a sound evaluation of your investment. You need to look at the hotel. Where is the hotel? When is it going to open? How are things, the hotel how were they impacted by the pandemic? How is construction impacted by the pandemic? And we need to come to a conclusion on risk based on what is actually happening at the project. So there may be, right now we have a project that's in Montana in an area that is not crowded. Everything around it to do at the project is socially distanced. The area, all of the hotels in the area right now, even during the pandemic, are full. The U.S. is open for the most part. So those hotels are actually being really successful right now throughout this time period. And as we continue to get the vaccines rolled out throughout the U.S. this year, we should be in a fairly normal state this fall. So we're opening our hotel this fall, and we don't expect COVID to really impact things at the site. There's other projects that actually having COVID during construction has even cleared out parts of different cities that has allowed people to do construction more easily without traffic coming in day to day. So there are things that there are groups that have actually in some ways maybe even benefited from this. And then how does that really tie in back to your capital structure? So you also want to figure out how your money is put into the project, which I'll dive into a little bit further here. But what I'm trying to get at is, don't make assumptions on a certain type of business until you look into the project and really make an evaluation on what are all the pieces there. Because like at our current deal in Montana, not only do you have a hotel, but you have residences that have already been sold that cover all the debt. So you have another way that protects another portion of the project that's protecting your investment on top of the hotel portion of the project. So these are all things that you really need to evaluate when you're looking at an EB5 deal. Moving on to the next key here is all the financing in place? That's a huge key. Is also, do you have a developer completion guarantee, and is this developer, do they have the capital to finish this project if things go south, if there's any issues with the deal? So we like to work in EB5 with only well-capitalized developers that can finish the EB5 project with or without the EB5 money. Right now, it's been difficult throughout the pandemic to raise EB5 capital. So if people come short on their EB5 raises, are they going to finish the project? For our current project, we've sold 38 of the 39 residences there for $351 million. And we only have $238 million of debt on the project. So we're sitting in a really good position, and we already have all of the money in place to finish the construction. So it really doesn't matter if we raise the rest of the EB5 or not. But obviously we're going to make sure that we do that and get all of these investors their green cards. So when looking here at the next slide, when you're making an EB5 investment, you are investing first into an EB5 fund that is then either loaning the money or putting the money in as equity into a project that creates 10 jobs. So you can see on this chart, the NCE is a new commercial enterprise. That is the EB5 fund. As an EB5 investor, you are buying one share of that fund for $900,000. Okay. Our group is the NCE manager. We manage the EB5 fund at EB5 United. So we will take your funds and loan them to the developer to create your 10 jobs with the development project. In doing that, we are a fiduciary on your behalf. Some people will take the money and their developers will raise the EB5 and loan it to themselves. That is a conflict of interest because they're taking your money and loaning it to themselves. If they decide they want to stop paying the interest on that loan, they're on both sides of that transaction. So there is a conflict of interest. They can just stop paying the interest and there is no one to stop them. When we structure these deals, we are running the EB5 fund. So if the developer doesn't pay the interest to the investors, we don't get paid either. That's how we make our money. So we're looking out for you. We're investing this money on your behalf. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to track that investment and make sure that you get through and get your money back and obtain your interest throughout the project. So looking at how this money now is put into the project, you're going to have banks, you're going to have developer equity, you're going to have other different money that comes into the project. So just to give an example on our project in Montana, we had a developer who has done more than $17 billion of real estate since the 1980s, or really actually since the early 90s. It's been over the last 27 years. So they have put $196 million into this project. The great thing about that is that they are subordinate to the EB5. That means the EB5 money has priority to be repaid before that $196 million of developer equity. So the developer would have to lose that $196 million before the EB5 loan is impacted. And we created a cap, a maximum amount of debt on the project. So the debt is the loans, right? You have the institutional loan from the bank, right? We have from institutional funds, we have $175 million being loaned to the project. We then are putting $63.5 million in. So that's $238.5 million. We are protected. The developer would have to lose this $196 million before we're impacted. And like I said, we've already sold $351 million worth of residences. So those investors put 40% down on the residence, and then they come back. They pay the other 60% down when we finish the project this fall in November. So that money will come in, and that's enough money to pay back the bank and the EB5. Now we'll want to keep the EB5 money in the project for the next 5 to 7 years throughout the loan term, so that all the investors can obtain their green card and then get their money back. So what the developer will do is pay off the $175 million, likely next year, sometime in 2022, and we will move into first position. So if the developer was ever to default and not pay us the interest on our loan or not pay our loan back, we would take the building from them. And the hotel is expected, we've already sold 351 million of residences. We have one more residence to sell for $18 million. And then we have $130 million that we expect in value from the hotel. So we're in a very, very good position in this project. We also have booked out the hotel for multiple weekends next year in February of 2022, as everything is expected to get back to a little bit more normal here in the United States, and it really already is. I actually just received the vaccine this morning, the first one, got it right here from Pfizer, and we'll get the second one in 22 days. So I just wanted to compare this to other projects and how this works. So your typical EB5 is going to have at least 50%, around 50 to 60% coming from a bank or financial institutions. Like I said, in our project, we only have 40%. Then you will usually have the EB5 loan or preferred equity, however it comes into the project. In the next position, that will usually be about 20 to 30% of the project. So the developer equity is usually only around maybe 10 to 30% tops in EB5 projects. Usually you're going to see it more around 20%. That means that the project only has to lose that 20% of value from the developer before the EB5 loan is impacted. For us, we have to lose 45% of the value before the EB5 loan is impacted. And like I said, we already have sold $351 million of residences. So we already do have the cash coming in to pay off all of the debt in the project. So it really takes away a lot of the risk. And just to recap on EB5 projects, right? We've really dove into the immigration risks, making sure that the project is approvable, that the 10 jobs are attainable, and that you have a competent agent and attorney to source your funds. Then we've covered the investment risk, where we've looked at how the money is put into the project and how is the money structured. So how much developer equity is protecting your money, because in EB5, you're really not going to receive a big return. That your return is more going to be your green card. So we want to make the money legally has to be at risk in the project and right throughout a certain period of time for you to obtain your green card. So what we do is we've gone through the capital structure and how we protect your investment with developer equity to make sure that even though your money is at risk in the project, we're not necessarily in a very risky position. And then we've compared that capital stack to kind of your basic EB5 project, where you have 50% debt, 30% EB5, 20% developer equity, and you can really see the difference in how much that extra equity protects you as an investor. So these are the things that you want to be looking at EB5, but let's transition over into regular private equity. So this changes everything about the game, because now we don't have the restrictions of the EB5 program. We don't have the at-risk requirement for a certain time period. We don't have to create 10 jobs for every investor. We need to evaluate a lot of different things because we can invest money in so many more different ways than we can with EB5. EB5 is a very straightforward structure, and the majority of projects are going to be structured pretty similarly. You're just looking at how much equity is really protecting your investment. So in a private equity offering, we can first look at the capital structure. Just like we did in the last project, we can, or with EB5 projects, we can look at how much debt is in the project. Is there any mezzanine loans or EB5 loans or preferred equity? And what is the developer equity? And in looking at private equity, we no longer have the immigration portion of this. So what is the investment objective? The investment objective depends on the investor, but you are going to want more return than you're going to get in an EB5 project. So we can make a debt offering for private equity where maybe it's more of an income producing investment, right? So now we're moving on to what is from the capital structure, you can look at how the capital goes in, but now what is the strategy of the investment? All right. So sometimes we can be looking at putting money in as debt. We can be looking at putting money in as equity. In debt, you're usually looking for more secure investments. They're not going to pay as high of a return. And there's going to be more of a specific time period that the money is going to be put in. You're going to have less risk, kind of like in our EB5 projects where we protected it with developer equity. Usually you're going to protect a debt private equity offering or any type of loan. You're going to protect it more than you would an equity offering, because an equity is going to give you more return, more risk, more return. So the strategy can also be equity. It can be preferred equity, where the developer is going to pay you a set return before they take any money. Or it could be a form of pari passu equity or common equity, where you are splitting the returns with the developer altogether. So now we have so many different investment strategies. And now that moves us along to what is the investment timeline. And so let me just give you an example. We actually have a private equity offering that should be out next month in Midland, Texas. And so I'll get into evaluating different markets in the US here in just a minute, but I just want to look at the timeline of this investment. So we've structured a project where we have an option on a piece of land with a developer to purchase a piece of land, which is currently zoned for 120 homes. And we are actively working with the city, and we're working to get it rezoned for 651 homes. What that does is increases the value of that property. I mean, overnight, we instantly go from being able to build 120 homes on this site to 651. That allows us to make a lot more money and build a lot more by building all those homes. And it makes the value of that land go up immensely. So what we've structured is we have a deal where as long as we get this land entitled and rezoned so we can increase the amount of homes we can put on this property, we will be able to close and purchase the land. Well, after we close and purchase the land, we already have a set price that we're buying the land for. After we close, once it's rezoned, that land value will likely more than double instantly. So we will be able to take portions of the land and sell them before we even start construction of the project to get the money that we initially invested out of the project. And then we'll keep the rest of the land and develop the project ourselves, or we'll use a joint venture partner, a developer who is very, very well known. We are already working with a couple of groups on this, and we'll develop the rest of the properties and make money that way. And so there's we can either sell all that property, or we can make money that way, or we can do the development. The development's going to take longer time. The investment's going to need to be in there longer. Versus if we sold it all, we might not make as much money, but we get it all out now. So in looking in that, there's multiple parts to that investment. One of them is we're raising money just for the purchase of the land, which we might be able to take a portion and sell it and get that money back and pay the investors back with a return within months without any risk of construction. This is something that you absolutely cannot do in EB5. right? So this is how we can create strategies with private equity to make money with mitigating risks and without going through an entire construction project. Then, so let's say we get the land, we purchase it, we get the rezoning, we sell off portions of it, and we make a bunch of money. Or let's say we sell all of it and we make a lot of money, and that is shared with the people who invest in the project. Or we have, let's say we do sell a portion of the land and make the money back, but then we reinvest into, let's say investors want to reinvest or get into the development of the rest of the project. That might be a longer investment. So in all of these points of the project, you're going to have a risk evaluation to do. You're going to be provided information on the project by whoever the issuer is, like ourselves, and we'll go through and make a business decision to help each investor in their needs. Every investor is looking for different things in private equity. Like I said, some people are looking for debt. They're looking for fixed income. They're looking for something that's going to consistently just pay them a little bit of money over time or be very safe. Some people, maybe they have a lot of money, or maybe they're young and they're looking to grow. We'll look into something that has a little bit more risk appetite, but can really pay a very strong return. So these are all big portions. And then these are all big things in evaluating private equity deals. But then let's move on to specific market evaluation. The United States is very diverse. It is very different from most countries in the world because there are so many different types of cities, types of weather. You have completely different weather throughout the United States. You have completely different people. You have different backgrounds, different everything in the United States. It's just something that doesn't happen in other countries. So when you go to each city is priced differently. The housing market in Midland, Texas, where we're about to do a private equity offering, is very different from down here in the Miami, Florida area, where we have another private equity offering we're going to have right after the one in Texas. So you have very different markets throughout the United States. So you need to let's look at like what is bringing the demand to Midland, Texas. Okay, so that's where our next private equity offering will be. So Midland, Texas produces 1/5 of the natural gas and petroleum output in the United States. It in 2019 had the lowest unemployment rate in the country. This year, it has the 4th lowest unemployment rate in the country, only 2.1%. So Midland is known for being one of the most, it has more jobs than it has people. And so it actually is the 4th fastest growing city in America, and its neighboring city, Odessa, is the 15th fastest growing. So now the prices there are very low compared to here in Miami, but those prices have a lot of room for growth and have grown a ton over the last decade. And with this, also in the United States, 13 of the 25 fastest growing cities are in Florida and Texas. So the state of Florida and the state of Texas right now are open, and they have regulations that are much more attractive for businesses. And so all the businesses are leaving California and they're leaving New York and they're coming down here to Florida, or they're going over to Texas. And so as we're seeing this come in, in Midland, we're looking at the project that we're looking at, and the city does not have anything like it. There's all these people moving into Midland for jobs from other cities, and they're looking for something kind of modern, and there's nothing around it in the city. So I myself went over to Midland and drove around the city, checked it out, did an evaluation. And so I got a really good understanding of the market and saw where we can bring value with this project. And so these are things that when you're talking to people who are bringing you private equity offerings and real estate offerings in the United States, you need to be asking these questions. Have you done your due diligence? Have you been there? What's there at the site? Things in Midland, Texas are very different, like I said, from here in Miami, which are very different from New York City, which are very different from Denver, Colorado. You have a lot of diversity in the United States in a lot of different areas. And also, there's some of these smaller areas, especially in Texas and Florida with the growth that we're having right now. There are areas with more potential for growth than you would ever see in a major metropolitan like a New York City. So when you're looking for opportunity in the United States, you really want to look all over, see where people are going, what is driving demand, what is driving real estate increases, what is creating a situation where you can find value and make money in a real estate transaction. Because we don't just want to put money into real estate, let it sit there, let it make some money and get it out. When we're doing private equity, that's kind of the model for EB5, because we have to follow certain guidelines. But here, how can we get creative? How can we structure deals to find value that other people can't find? How can we find the right partners and the right developers that with the know-how to create these strategies? And that's just a huge part of private equity and a huge part of the opportunity involved with it. All right. You're also looking now, we talked about the investment strategy and the investment timeline, under construction. That's a question for EB5. Construction's, I don't want to say it's more important, but it always is important because it's about job creation. For private equity, it's completely dependent on the investment. Like I said, we have an investment that's coming up where we're probably going to be able to rezone the property, sell off portions, and we're going to be able to make all the money back with a return without even going through any construction. And then there's other projects where you're going to invest that are in construction, and you're going to want to see that everything's off the ground and running. So these are all big questions and all things that, if you're discussing with somebody like myself, or Alex about a private equity offering about real estate in the United States, the people you're dealing with understand all of these things and are doing all of this work on your behalf to make sure that we're creating a sound investment for you to make money and meet the needs that you have as an investor. Okay. Obviously, the business model is going to be important, dependent on what is the investment strategy. So it's slightly different again from EB5. You want to make sure if you are investing in the construction portion of a project, is all the financing in place? You want to make sure of that. Is this going to get completed with or without all the private equity investors? So these are all good questions to ask and good things to go through in evaluating some real estate investments in the US. All right. So with that kind of breaks down the differences between EB5 and regular private equity. EB5 has a very set structure. We need to create 10 jobs. We need the money invested for a certain time period. The money is going to go all into one deal that's going to create these jobs. And we need to structure it for a lot of safety, because we just can't raise, if we make the money in EB5 too risky, we won't be able to get enough investors to fill those projects. So we want to make them as low risk as we can, and get investors their green card and their money back. For private equity, we have a lot of different ways to make money, a lot of different investment strategies. So there's a lot of creativity that goes into private equity deals, and a lot of due diligence. And so, like I said, you really want to be working with people when you're making private equity investments into real estate deals in the United States with competent groups that really can answer these questions for you and get you good information. Okay. Because we're here, we're on the ground, we're here on your behalf, while you may be far away and don't have the ability to come check out the site yourself. So, just to kind of wrap up, I would like to just mention that, with our project in Montana, the Montage project, we have only limited spots available. So those are filling up quickly, and we expect to finish that raise within the next couple months. So people have an opportunity right now to get in at the end of the project, All the jobs have already been created. We already have exemplar and I-526 approval. The project is 77% complete. We have sold 38 of the 39 residences for $351 million, and we only have $238 million of debt. The hotel will also be expected to be worth $130 million, and we should open the hotel this fall. The developer, I recently was at the site actually a week and a half ago, and the guys at the site said that they should have it completed this kind of October, November, and they'll either open the hotel right before Thanksgiving in November or right before Christmas in December. Our developer has not made that decision, but it will be this fall. So you're getting in at the end, jobs created, risks mitigated, and have a great opportunity to do this right now in Vietnam. You know, the backlog is continuously moving it is moving right now. So we're getting the priority dates just moved up almost 2 months this last month. And Charlie Oppenheim, who runs the visa bulletin for the USCIS, just came out yesterday and said that he expects Vietnam to continuously move forward throughout this year, 2021. And anyways, I'd like to thank you for your time. This was a lot of talking, so I hope that everyone here was able to get some really good information on the EB5 and regular private equity real estate investments and these opportunities in the United States. And so, like I said before, Alex is in Ho Chi Minh City. He's there and available to assist you from there. And I will be here on the forefront in the United States and make sure that I am getting around to our projects and doing the due diligence necessary for our investors. And we're going to bring products to everyone that meet the needs of your investment strategy. And you know, that differs between EB5 and regular private equity real estate offerings. But you know, our goal at EB5 United is to provide value for our clients and to make sure that their needs are met. So I want to thank everybody for the time today. I hope that this was very helpful for people. And so I'll kick it over to Alex to kind of close us up here. And I appreciate the time.
Great. All right, Brennan, I had some questions for you about the private equity offering you have over in Texas. So you mentioned that the project's gonna be worth more money after it's rezoned. Can you tell me more about that and why it's gonna be worth more money?
So if you're looking at the land, the plot of land, right? It is currently it used to be a golf course. So we're purchasing this golf course and we're going to develop the golf course. Right now, it is entitled for 120 homes. So we could build 120 homes, right? If you separate out the land and you build 120 homes and you sell those homes, there's a certain amount of profit that you can make from that, right? And when we buy the land, if it's zoned for 120 and we sell it and it's still zoned for 120, it's going to be worth something similar because nothing's been done. When we get this re-entitlement for 650, what that is it's a 275 unit apartment building, 50 townhomes, and 50 townhomes and 371 single family homes. Okay. So now, and then there will be 3 office spaces zoned in there as well. So now instead of just 121 homes, we have three office spaces we can sell. We have a unit for 275 apartments that we can sell. A developer can come in and put together a 275 unit apartment complex and possibly make more money than we would just developing only 120 homes. So it makes the land significantly more valuable because we can build so much more on the land. And so we can take out the office building and the apartments and the townhome sections, and we can sell those to developers who want to develop an office or develop a townhome. But because we got the land re-entitled so that they can do that, they wouldn't have been able to do it before. That increases the value by a ton. So we can buy the land zoned for 120, re-entitled for 651, then that gives us the ability to sell off portions and keep other portions and get all of our money back out before we start construction.
So who is actually going to be in charge of granting the entitlement of the rezoning for the project?
So that's done by the city. We've been in talks with them. We have a meeting on April 5th to get this thing rezoned. And so that's where we are right now. That's why we're bringing this out next month. As soon as we won't make the purchase of the land until we have the entitlement taken care of and wrapped up. So at this point, this offering is going to happen as long as we can get this land re-entitled. If we don't want to get involved with the project. So we're waiting to see that happens. As soon as it does, which we expect it to be within about the next 60 days or so, then we will get right in and make the purchase of this land. And so we're going to be raising those funds as we're waiting. If we don't end up purchasing the land, if we don't get the entitlements, then the money would never get invested. But if we do, boom, we buy the land, we have the entitlements, we rezone, we sell off pieces of the land, and we can pay back the money right away. And then we decide if we're going to develop the rest of the land or sell it all for more profit. And if we develop, then we bring the investors back in. And if they want to get involved again, then we get them in there.
Okay, so just a quick review for everybody. Can you explain to me what a cap rate is and what it means for real estate?
So a cap rate is a way to evaluate the value of a business of a building or a business or whatever you're trying to evaluate. So it would be a business. So like in a hotel, if you want to estimate the value. If you want to estimate the value of a hotel, you can take the net operating income, which is all of the revenue that you have coming into the hotel minus all of the expenses. So at the end of the year, if you have a net operating income of X amount, if you divide that by your cap rate, which usually you run a cap rate between 4 and 11% in real estate, then you divide your net operating income by your cap rate and it equals how much that property is worth. So a lower cap rate, and cap rates there are a lot of different ways to calculate cap rates. Like I said, in real estate with hospitality, most people are going to use a 4 to 11%. You're going to need to evaluate the market, where the project is, what's around it, to try to there are so many different factors that go into a cap rate. But essentially you divide the net operating income by the cap rate to get the value. The lower the cap rate, the higher the value it's going to show, right? Because you're dividing by a percentage. So if you're dividing by 0.07%, 0.07, that's 7% cap rate, that's going to give you a lower valuation than if you divide it by 0.06%. So, a conservative cap rates are usually somewhere around 6-7%. But like I said, it just depends on kind of where the project is.
So a lot of investors are going to have more familiarity with places like New York or Los Angeles, the real estate markets in those areas. How would you compare looking at cap rates in Odessa versus some of the major markets like this on the coast?
Let's not ask that question.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
I mean, because honestly, like there's
a lot going on right now.
That's too detailed of a question. I don't have a.
Okay.
And I mean, we're not even. No. Yeah. Well, let's not go through.
Okay. A lot of investors ask me that if there's any problems with the EB5 investment and they can't get their money back, is it possible to get a house or a hotel room returned to them instead of their initial investment?
No. So personal real estate will not be sufficient for an EB5 investment. It's all about job creation. You're not going to be able to do it with your regular just residents. So, and you can't be guaranteed the money by an EB5 issuer. So it has to be at risk, right? So when you're making an investment, they cannot, use a unit let's say you're funding a big real estate project that has a bunch of condos, they cannot say that, oh, well, if the project fails, we're going to use one of the condos as collateral to the EB5, to you as an EB5 investor. They cannot segment out individual collateral for the individual investors. It needs to be one big piece of collateral, which is usually going to be that overall building. So in EB5, let's say you have a bank loan and then you're in second position. Essentially, if there's an issue, then the money that, the money gets paid out in the project and will go first to the bank and then to you, and we'll see how much value can get taken, extrapolated out of the deal to make sure that everybody gets paid out. Sorry, I guess I lost my train of thought a little bit on that.
No worries. Okay, so
what was the question again? You were asking
returning a house back, or a hotel room back to the investor.
Okay.
So no, but you can have the entire building secured to all the EB5 investors in the group.
Yeah. So you can have, essentially what you do is you secure the building, to the entire building, to all the EB5 investors. It's just like when the bank puts a lien on a building, or has the building as collateral, EB5 will usually have the entire building as collateral as well. And that collateral is shared with the entire EB5 fund. It's not, they don't collateralize specific to individual investors.
Okay. So another one that I get a lot is the job creation. A lot of people are confused. There's already been a lot of construction. The building's close to completion. Are there any jobs left for me to get as an investor?
So we make sure that we have a job buffer in all of our projects. So you like in our current deal in Montana, we're creating over 4,600 jobs and we only need 920, right? And we've already created over 3,000. So we definitely have all the jobs for the 92 investors. They need 920. And we use an economic modeling, so those jobs don't go away. So whether you invested before we created them or now after we've created them, we're also going to create another 1,000 or so jobs, but those jobs in the past still can count for you. So as long as the project has gone through enough construction and spent enough money to create all the jobs for your EB5, your specific EB5 fund, then you're good. And that's also, you really need to evaluate every deal. You cannot just look at the track record of a regional center. You can look at a track record of a regional center to get an understanding of whether they have the competence to get you your green card and to put together and structure a solid deal. But you need to evaluate every deal. There are groups that have a great track record and they failed on one or two deals throughout their history. But it's because if you looked at the deal, it was not sound. There were bad investment decisions made. And it's consistent in the industry. When you look at these deals that people have failures in, I could have told you before they invested, if I looked at that project and made an evaluation, this had a major risk to it. And so people really need to evaluate every deal that they're looking into investing, whether that's through EB5 or regular private equity.
Okay.
I have a call in 4 minutes with this investor.
Yeah.
So, is there any other questions that you want to ask, or what's your thought?
I think that's most of it for now. I'll take it to Immica tomorrow and see what they say. And then if there's any changes, we can figure it out over the weekend. They said also that they can take things as late as Monday. So gives a little bit of buffer.
To do that and then see what they say. And then if they need anything else, then we can redo some things or something.
Right.
But I think that should give them like everything that they're looking for.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
All right. You got this recorded, right? All good?
It is.
All right. I would have been a little frustrated if you didn't.
Take that one. All right.
Yeah. So ready to be done with this cold. I kind of was like, well, if I'm gonna get sick like this, I wish it was COVID, but now I just got the vaccine, so I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, congrats. I still don't understand the whole vaccine availability system for you guys, but it's
Well,
good you got it.
I had lung surgery and I had asthma as a child. So
Okay, well that'll put you right at the top. So
yeah, I had a thoracotomy in 2009 that I almost died. So the hospital actually, I got on a list where I could get like extra vaccines when the site's done. At the end of the day, they just have lists where they text you if there's one available, because if they don't use them, they just go bad.
right.
So I was on that, but then my hospital has like, it's actually kind of cool. The hospital that I go to, it has like this portal and you can always get stuff, and telehealth is like super easy now. It's actually really nice. But they just started texting. They called me, texted me, and emailed me, and were like, "Yo, you are getting right now in Florida. It's 60 plus. Anyone 60 plus can get it, but I got in with that group."
Cool, man.
So, but yeah, dude, it's now I like most older people I know have gotten it. Brad and Scott just got it 2 days ago, or no, yesterday.
Oh, nice.
No, 2 days ago. Yeah. So it's and cases are like, dude, in Oregon, they're averaging like about 240 cases a day, new cases a day, and the like somewhere between like maybe like 5 deaths a day, and they have everything closed
Oh, wow.
in Oregon. It's the second least. It has the second least COVID amount of COVID per capita of any state, and they're completely shut down.
Vietnam is all about mask order. So everywhere you go, just wear a mask. Everything else is fine.
Yeah. I mean, everyone wears masks here, except for if they're in the club in Miami. It's a little bit of a free for all, but it's I don't really go. I go out to dinner and stuff, but I like the clubs and stuff. But all right, I gotta get on this other call.
Cool. Talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Later.